If you have ever considered moving to a new country for work, or to study, or just a change of scenery, you may be wondering what to expect. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Leslie, and I am a life coach based in Brisbane, Australia. But I'm actually recording this video from my parents' house in eastern Pennsylvania. This is the house I grew up in, aside from the times that I spent living in Peru with my mom's family. I've also lived in a few different countries as an adult, so I've learned a thing or two about how amazing the experience of living abroad can be. That said, I've also experienced a number of drawbacks. And my experiences aren't necessarily unique. I've been part of many different expat communities, and I taught international students in the Australian university system for about a decade. And some of these topics have come up again and again in our conversations. So the pros and cons I'm going to present are ones that are commonly experienced by people who make the leap to setting up a life in a new country. So, on to the list. Drawback. You may feel excluded from important events back home. I've missed out on countless weddings, holidays, new babies, a couple of funerals, because I was in some different part of the world and couldn't always just hop on a plane to come home. I have been back to visit here a bunch of times, but I've still had to miss out on important events just due to scheduling and cost mainly. And I also find myself in the weird position of having an official list of people whose funerals I would absolutely fly back home for, no matter how much it would cost or how disruptive it might be to my life in Australia. That feels a little weird sometimes. Benefit. You get to expand your horizons. A new country means new experiences, new people, a new culture, new cuisines. And it can be a real adventure. You also get to learn how to do new things, and it can take you out of your comfort zone, which is crucial for personal growth. And if you take the necessary steps to truly immerse yourself in the local culture, you can learn so much about the values and traditions and little daily rituals that people in your host country engage in. And that can really give you a new perspective on how you grew up doing things like celebrating holidays or commemorating life milestones, and how you might continue to do those things moving forward. Drawback. You may have to leave your support system. A lot of my former students really struggled with this. Some of them had to learn how to cook for themselves for the first time, or how to manage their money on their own and do laundry, basic life stuff, and homesickness can make these things even harder to handle. So developing a support network or finding community in your new country is really important. Of course, that is easier said than done. Benefit. It can really boost your self-confidence. You can learn a lot about your own capabilities when you only have yourself to rely on. Even if you do build a good support network around you, just the act alone of doing that is something to be celebrated. So when you do manage to figure out things like how to open a bank account or rent an apartment or navigate the healthcare system, that can really make you feel like, you know what? I got this. I can do anything. And that can feel pretty good. Drawback. You may run into a language barrier. When you visit a place as a tourist, A lot of your interactions may be with people in the tourism industry, so chances are they speak at least a little bit of English. Or you may get by on basic survival phrases in the host language, or some combination of the two. But when you actually live in another country, communication has to be handled more carefully because the stakes are much higher. And that can still apply when you move to another English-speaking country because of the slight differences in verbal and nonverbal communication. But once you learn more of the local language and get a hang of how people communicate, the language barrier will become less and less of a problem. Benefit: you get to learn a new language! Again, even if your host country's language is the same as your home country's, there are still differences in communication you'll have to deal with. Now, if you're moving to a foreign language environment, learning how to speak the local language can be very empowering and can even open up additional educational or job opportunities in that host country or upon your return to your home country. Take it from a former language teacher. Really immersing yourself in a foreign language environment is the most efficient and effective way to acquire any new language. Drawback: you may experience culture shock and reverse culture shock. One thing I've definitely experienced a few times is that feeling of returning to the US for a visit and feeling less and less like I can relate to the people and situations around me. Things like driving laws, or tipping, or other etiquette-related things. It can be a bit of an adjustment. One example that comes to mind right away for me is coming from Australia to the US and seeing signs on shop windows designating areas where firearms aren't allowed. We obviously don't have those in Australia. And that makes me feel feelings. Benefits: being part of a global community. Being a true person of the world is a pretty good feeling. When I look at my CV, my resume, and see all of the different countries and continents where I've worked and where I've studied, it feels very reassuring because it's like an illustration of my ability to dream about living in a new place and then turn that dream into a reality over and over again. In fact, now, as a married mother of a 3-year-old, my little family and I are actually planning an international move together in the sort of near future. But more on that another time. Drawback: disconnection between children and other relatives. I started my family on the other side of the planet from my immediate family. That means that my daughter and my here family don't get nearly enough time together. Now, she also doesn't get to see her American cousins as often as we would like. I mean, luckily, my husband Tony's parents live near us in Australia, and my parents and I do occasionally visit each other, so she still gets plenty of family love. But yeah, it'd be nice to be able to just have dinner with all of the cousins without having to plan a year or two in advance. But it's just part of the deal. Benefits: building an international family. Living away from your own family gives you an opportunity to build an additional family, not a replacement family, an additional family in other countries. I have people all over the world who I feel are a part of my family to some degree. That's something that happens a lot in expat communities. For example, when I lived in Vietnam, I celebrated Western holidays with my expat friends and some of my local friends, and that was heaps of fun. So I didn't feel like I was missing out on having a sense of family in those situations. It felt really nice. Yeah, it was great. If you are thinking about moving abroad, I can tell you that in my experience, the pros have definitely outweighed the cons. And whatever cons do exist, there are things that you can do to minimize the negative impacts of them. So if moving abroad is a decision you are debating right now or something you are considering for the future, get in touch and we can chat about it. You can book a free consultation through my website, leslievcoaching.com, or hit me up on my socials. Also, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, and or subscribe to my channel because that would be super helpful, and that way you can keep up with my future uploads. All right, I am going to go and do some more indulging in American things, and I'll try to get another video up next week. I've been very off schedule, but I'm working on it. Have an awesome week, fortnight, whatever, and I'll see you next time.